Right, so good evening and welcome to 40 Days Bible Study, number 189. This is Matthew chapter 5, starting at verse 32, part B, because we finished off verse 32 from last week. And we'll go towards verses 33 to, we should get through up till 36, but there's that whole paragraph up to 37, so we may have to backtrack in our next session. Right? Looking at Matthew chapter 5, I'm bringing that up on screen now. So verse 32, we're continuing. We started this last week. But I say to you that everyone who divorces his wife, except on the ground of sexual immorality, makes her commit adultery. And whoever marries a divorced woman commits adultery. In this verse, we started doing most of it and completed the bulk of that last week. But there's a big implication of this statement here being made by Jesus. And the implication is that divorced persons will seek remarriage. So in verse 32, if you check it, but I say to you that everyone who divorces his wife, the man makes the woman commit adultery. Whoever marries a divorced woman commits adultery, but also whoever divorces his wife, except on the ground of sexual immorality, makes her commit adultery. Right? That the one who marries a divorced woman is an automatic adulterer. Jesus didn't distinguish in this a previously married man from one who was never married before. So this here, talking about adultery and so on, it's not necessarily you're a married man committing adultery. You may never have been married before and you suddenly marry this woman. You're still committing adultery. The man here is an automatic adulterer because he's marrying somebody else's wife, divorce or not. I point out here the word adulterer, right? Because it's used in the case of a previously unmarried man. So if, in this little statement here, whoever marries the divorced woman commits adultery and is thus an adulterer. Whoever here doesn't say if he was married before or not. So it is possible that this whoever also includes previously unmarried people. This supports the point we made last week where adultery exists whether you are married or you're unmarried, because adultery is relations outside of marriage. I've never been married, so I can't commit adultery. Yes, you can. Because if you have sexual relations, it'll be with somebody who's not your wife. Adultery. Albert Barnes took a very hard stance saying that the only way a person can remarry is if he was divorced for the reason of adultery. People may get divorced, but the ability to remarry, according to the word of God, is very restricted. Matthew Poole described the Pharisaic reasons for divorce, and he described it as every slight occasion. He said they get divorced for every slight occasion. And he was saying it like that to show how flippantly they treated divorce. They didn't think it was a big deal and said, "Oh, you want to get divorced? She cooked the roti too bad, or okay, well, you get a divorce, no problem. Book it." Right? That's wrong, by the way. They were just encouraging people to do wrong things because while they were the ones who were supposed to be studying the word and sharing the word and leading people in the word, they weren't leading the people right. Spirit of the law, not just the word of the law. John Gill mentions the three rabbis. We spoke about it last week too. And He summarized this whole point very well in the commentary page. All right. Um, a final point on this, I saw someone of them said it, I can't remember which one. They said that the act of adultery, figuratively, dissolves the marriage knot that binds the two people. So adultery is a serious thing. That's why it earned the consequence of death in the Old Testament law. So y'all don't mess around with that. Even today, don't mess around with it. People think, well, that was Old Testament time. It's not such a big deal now. Everybody does. No, 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 no. Don't let culture numb you to the true consequences of our actions. Okay? Um, we're looking here now at verse 33, and I'll run it straight down 33 to 37, because some of what we share will be in all parts of this. This is in the path about oaths, oaths, correct pronunciation, oaths. Again, you have heard that it was said to those of old, you shall not swear falsely, but shall perform to the Lord what you have sworn. But I say to you, do not take an oath at all, either by heaven, for it is the throne of God, or by the earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. And do not take an oath by your head, for you cannot make one hair white or black. Let what you say be simply yes or no. Anything more than this comes from evil or from the evil one. That little G will tell you from the evil one. Verse 33 restates the reminder that lessons Jesus has been addressing were taught to the Jews over time, said to those of old. So the ancients, some translations would say the ancients. It was taught to them from generations coming forward. The law regarding oaths is found in Leviticus 19:12. So I want to show you Leviticus 19:12. This is the BSB, Berean Standard. You must not swear falsely by my name, and so profane the name of your God. I am the Lord. It's also given to us in Deuteronomy 23:23. I want us to look at two translations here. The Berean Standard, be careful to follow through on what comes from your lips, because you have freely vowed to the Lord your God with your own mouth. Now, this is pretty clear. I want to show you the King James because sometimes we need to understand why I don't use the King James as my first choice. That which is gone out of thy lips, thou shalt keep and perform, even a free will offering, according as thou hast vowed unto the Lord thy God, which thou hast promised with thy mouth. If you could read that the first time and figure out exactly what they're saying perfectly, good for you. I can't. Not because I don't want to, because it's complex and my brain don't speak that language. Yet people insist we must use King James. I'm bringing this to show that it is almost impossible to understand with a 1, 2, 3, or even 5-time read. So imagine what some naive preacher, an innocent but naive preacher who is taught only King James King James is the only way, as if King James was Jesus. King James is the only Bible to use, and a naive guy who doesn't know much or is innocent and he has a good heart, but he doesn't fully understand it. He will just preach whatever comes to mind when he reads this. Worse, imagine some circus clown performing for an audience. He would take this and he would talk about this and make this about everything from lying with your lips to praising God with your lips to eating food to, I don't know, burying people. Who knows what he would twist this to be, because you can twist this if you're creative enough. And the sheep in his audience will be misled. That's why you have to test the word. Meyer says this paragraph brings doctrinal precepts regarding instructions given in Exodus 20, verse 7 and Leviticus 19:12. I'm not going there though. They also talk about taking God's name in vain and swearing by God's name. Maya also said that the Pharisees made loose distinction between binding and non-binding oaths. So here we're talking about oaths, and the Pharisees were taught, cultural context now, historical context now, in that time, if a person made an oath and it was brought before the Pharisees, they would pick and choose who they say, yes, your oath is binding, yours is not. You go to jail and you have to pay a fine. No, you don't. You go free. You're okay. Obviously, they favor their friends. Now, this passage here of scripture is talking about the crime of perjury. Perjury is willfully lying to people or willfully lying under an oath. Pulpit said that the teaching of the people at that time was logically based on the law, but it didn't achieve the heights of conformance that the spirit of the law aimed for. Jesus was saying that a person's word is binding, so there's no need to swear oaths. Too many people back then would say things and not mean them. So the extremes had to be done to affirm a promise. Good thing we don't have that problem today. Let's be real, we do, right? Today, people, they mean what they say every day. No, they don't. People are fake, right? Many people back then would have made up stuff and just said stuff just to shut people up. I promise you I'll do this. I promise you I'll do that. I mean this. I promise. I swear. And they don't. They don't mean it. They won't hold up. So that was a problem back then. And guess what? It's still a problem now. Now, why did Jesus have to come forward and say this? Why is this necessary to say, you were taught this way back when? I'm telling you now, not to change what you've been doing in terms of the law changed. Change what you've been doing because you weren't obeying the spirit of the law. Albert Barnes made it clear this had to be said because people had a terrible habit of swearing in private conversations. Now, swearing here, I mean making oaths or promises, not cursing, because you could use swearing and saying oaths as curse words, right? We're not talking and using it in the context of curse words. They were in the habit of making promises in private conversations that should have been in more solemn situations. They were taking solemn things lightly, and that's disrespectful. Barnes actually used the word profane to describe the practice, as we saw in one of the translations in Deuteronomy. The Greek word horkos. Do we have that here? Yeah. Where is it? Right, this is the word. This is not the root word, but this is horkos, and you see it here. This O is pronounced like an O, but when you see the apostrophes over it, it gets an H in front of it. So H-O-R, this is an R. P is pronounced like an R. K-O-U-S, horkos. All right, horkos means oath. And in New Testament times, an oath was a solemn promise. It was so solemn, it was often accompanied by witnesses. So if you swear an oath, you had to have witnesses to see that you did, so that if the other person or you brought each other to court, the witnesses would be like, yep, we saw him swear an oath. Many commentators said that swearing on, for, or by the earth, Jerusalem, etc., that was prohibited. So some people's like, I swear on the earth, I swear on Jerusalem. That was prohibited because men, prohibited by Jesus here and in the spirit of the law, men would be dragging the holy God into their lies, minor issues, and foolishness. Very often people are like, you might be playing a game and, let's say you're playing a card game and people ask you, do you have any eights? And you're like, nope. And they'll be like, you sure you don't have eights? I swear I don't have eights. That's not a time to swear. Because an oath, making an oath or swearing an oath, is a solemn occasion. People would drag it into simple things. A new source that we don't often hear from, McLaren's commentary, it talks about the reduction of the sin of lying. Reduction of lying. And society does that. Society has taken lies, especially, and reduced it in terms of its severity and how wicked we perceive it. You're a murderer, big time crime. You're a liar, well, it's not such a big deal. You're just lying. That's not all sin. Okay. Society has brought down the severity of lying, and it's done that with actions and behaviors like swearing on a Bible when people don't mean what they're saying. If courts require that we may believe other promises of truth are less binding on people. Sorry, I said that wrong. If courts require the use of a Bible to swear on, it might appear that a person making a statement without swearing on a Bible, that statement without the Bible is less truthful. And that's not necessarily true. It's just the reason we go to the courts and we use the Bible to, I swear, to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth. That's because of the formal situation. In regular conversation, if you say something, you don't have to swear to it, but it should be truthful. And people reducing and society reducing the severity of a lie is wrong, because any sin against an all-powerful and perfect God earns the right to hell forever. In saying this little paragraph that we've been looking at here, Jesus did not banish oath making. In verse 34, where he says, but I say to you, do not take an oath at all. Notice it's not a full stop. He didn't say, don't take an oath, full stop. Jesus clarified the law when he said, do not swear an oath at all, either by heaven, or by the earth, or by Jerusalem, or by your head. Meaning, don't swear oaths on those things. The whole point of the law, Jesus was saying it, the whole point of the law regarding oaths was for people to know that lying is offensive to God, and using God's name in vain or using God's name to lie to people is an atrocious practice. God made this law because he knows the extent of evil that lives in the hearts of men. So God would say, don't lie, but he knows how far we take it. So he said, don't swear an oath falsely. Don't take solemn promises of truth and desecrate them. That's real. God's people should be known, by the way, for their honesty. So from us, a simple yes or no must suffice. You think about it, it's offensive really to say, to tell somebody, I'm trying to give you information. They're like, no, I don't believe you. And you're like, I swear, I promise, I swear. People like saying that. And if the more you look at it, the more you realize with a discerning heart that, why do you need to swear it? All right, I can't trust you. So if I can't trust you normally, when you say you swear, I should be able to trust you now? No, friends. Can't trust him. Maya gives a series of verses to show that Jesus, Paul, and God the Father, Jesus the Son. They swore oaths in the Bible itself. God's oath to Abraham in particular was referred to quite a few times in the Bible, not just by commentators, but in the Bible. Many people said, God said this. Remember when God said that to Abraham, when God swore an oath to Abraham, right? So swearing oaths is not the problem. It's how people did it. Cambridge describes it best when they said that Jesus here was making a statement, and it was a prohibition of rash and careless oaths. The practical use of oaths in civil law for official purposes, it's unavoidable because of the nature of people. So God was not removing the need for oaths in all circumstances, not at all. It was in the law, right? You shall not swear falsely. That doesn't mean you shall not swear full stop. Bengal brings a comparison of Jesus' teachings here and a comparison against how he taught for divorce. Because in both these cases, they are laws that were being misused by the teachers and the citizens. And why were they being misused? Because the people were weak, disobedient, and they lacked holiness in heart. The verses here talk about swearing by heaven, earth, Jerusalem, and one's own head. Swearing by heaven is swearing by God's throne. That's too holy to profane. Don't swear by heaven. Swearing by earth is God's footstool, right? You see it here. By earth is his footstool. God's footstool is again too holy to profane. Don't spoil and try to desecrate God's goodness. Swearing by Jerusalem is Jesus' city, the city of the great king, Jesus. Capital K for this king is Jesus, not David, Jesus. Jesus' city is too holy to profane. Don't swear by Jerusalem. Swearing by your own head. Well, that's my head. I could do that, right? No. Your head is something you have stewardship over. Your body, you have stewardship over your body. But you don't have complete authority over your body. So we can't swear by something that isn't ours to swear by. How you know you don't have complete authority over your body? Not one of you can make your hair white or black. Unless, of course, you use bleach and dye, but that's still using other things to make it. Not one of us could make our hair grow longer or shorter without using anything else. We don't have full control over our own head, much less any part of us to swear by. Don't swear by your head. These oaths are still swearing by God because he's the one who created all these things. He created the heavens, the earth, Jerusalem, and your head. And he created them valuable and beautiful, each in their own way. Swearing by one's head was a cheap attempt of the peoples to take God out of speech, to avoid desecrating him. But it was still a desecration because they went and said, well, I don't want to swear by Jerusalem because that's God's city. I should swear by my own head because that's mine. It's not. God created that too. You have no control over your head. This is a good example where they swore by the head of how the devil tries to make some things seem harmless when they really are very harmful. A good example, a couple examples of that would be little things like white lies. I'm just telling a little white lie. It's not your big deal. Dude, you're telling a lie. Don't swear falsely. Don't lie. As that statement, the end justifies the means. Never. People have affairs. It's adultery. You're screwing around. Oh, that's such a lovely couple. Yes, they're living together. No, they're screwing around. They're being disobedient to God's way. Oh, how you have to bring it like that? They're just innocent people in love. No, 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 they're not in love. Homosexuality. because the reason given is they were born that way. These are things people say today to euphemize or reduce the severity of criminal against God, criminal acts. Oh, by the way, saying that homosexuals were born that way, number one, no homosexual is born homosexual. And number two, if you're really born that way, you're not. But if you think you are, that's why we must be born again. Think about it. Think if God has numbered every hair on our heads, he knows the growth, the color, the appearance of every one of the hairs on our head. They're not controlled by the person. So who's in control of your head? Human arrogance refuses to recognize God. And even in things like this, where they say you could swear by your own head because, that's yours. It's not. It's really not. Last thing here. In the midst of all this, Jesus taught a solution. In verse 37, he said that making an oath on something that the Father created was too close to bringing the infallible one, God Almighty, too close to bringing him into our petty affairs. So all we have to do, say a simple yes or no to let your positions be known. When performing public service or official functions, making an oath was necessary, not for you, but for others. So making those oaths is covered by law, capital L, the law of God. It's thus allowed. It's even encouraged for the fitting carriage of justice and public matters. That said, we'll give a conclusion statement on oath taking before we go to retaliation. But next week we'll do that, and I will stop it right here. All right, I'm sorry to stop it so abruptly, but this is pretty much where I got to in my work. This has been 40 Days Bible Study number 189. It's April 29th, 2025, and we just concluded 63 Bible study, 63 in the study series on Matthew. God willing, we'll be here to complete the rest of 37 and start retaliation, that paragraph too. So thanks to all of you who are watching on Facebook and on YouTube. Thanks especially to the wonderful folks who are here live as well. Have a good night and God bless you.